Bam! Hello, my wonderful students. I thought I'd do this video for you, just explain a little bit about drug addiction and the effect that it has on the brain. By this point, you have watched the video about brain addiction from YouTube, and I'm just in my storage unit in my storage room in my basement because it's the only place I can be alone without interruptions, without a lot of noise. And so I just made this PowerPoint really quick. You can see I want to talk about the brain and how the brain functions. It's like a machine, right? So this right here is like your brain, right? You have the input that comes into your brain, and then you have the output. Now, this input could be in the form of many things. It can be your eyeballs seeing something, you hearing something, you tasting something, right? Or something going into your bloodstream and into your brain and affecting it. For example, some of you might see like a puppy, right? Then your brain, your eyeball sees that, it goes into your optic nerve that goes into your brain, to your pituitary gland that's about as big as a pea, and it releases hormones, and it tells your brain to release something called dopamine, or dope for short, and that makes you feel happy, right? Now, in this unit, we're not talking about puppies or boyfriends or girlfriends. Some of you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and when you see them, it makes you happy. You release that dopamine, right? We're talking about drugs, right? And all drugs have side effects. Some drugs, the side effects are greater than others. Some of the side effects make it so that the drug is worth taking. Ibuprofen, if you take a bunch of that, your stomach gets ulcers and holes in it. And so that takes a lot of ibuprofen. And so ibuprofen is not a controlled substance. But some of the drugs that have a big um, side effect with no benefits, those are the illegal drugs, the ones that people take to get high, right? And they're illegal because there hasn't been any proven benefits and there are large side effects to them. So you take this drug, whether you take the pill, you inject it into your arm, you smoke it, right? Something like that. It gets into your digestive system or your respiratory system or your circulatory system somehow. It goes to your brain, right? And then you have those higher feelings of dopamine, right? So it forces your body to make more dopamine than it can on its own. So a higher level of dopamine means that we are high, right? And it gets to the point where this higher level of dopamine is such an awesome high that we really don't, the puppy really doesn't do it. We concentrate on this drug so much, and all of a sudden that becomes the biggest way that we get the high, right? And so pretty soon, seeing puppies don't do it anymore. Seeing our boyfriend, girlfriend doesn't do it anymore, right? Playing baseball or Fortnite or whatever doesn't do it anymore, right? And so what happens? Well, we stop really caring about other things. We stop caring about our puppies. We stop caring about our family and other things that used to give us this high level of dopamine that made us happy no longer does. And so we focus on the drug to get it for us, right? So this becomes our strongest relationship, the drug, because we're focused on the high levels of dopamine, right? And pretty soon it overtakes our body so that we only have that pathway over us, right? This is the only pathway that happens. But guess what? Our body's not going to make those high levels of dopamine forever, right? Pretty soon the brain adjusts, says, hey, I'm not going to bust my butt to do this if the drug's going to do it for me. So it adjusts, right? And pretty soon that drug does not give us the huge high levels of dopamine. What does it do? It actually makes us just feel normal, right? We're down here, we're down, and we are not even functioning, right? Down here, we feel like garbage, and we can't even do anything until we do the drug. And then guess what? The drug actually makes us feel normal, right? And so some people actually have to do the drug just to function in society. In the video that we watched, the girl said that I had to shoot up with meth just to get out of bed and make my kids pancakes in the morning, right? And so that is not something that is good. And so it becomes no longer a choice. The people have to do the drug just to function, right? And so I guess that's what's hard and so hard about drug addiction our addiction to anything, is we no longer have the ability to choose, right? We have to do the drug. A friend of mine had his son that was addicted to meth. He said, "Come on, son, can't you see what it's doing to your mom, to our family? You're going in jail. You can't hold down a job. Why don't you just stop? When is enough enough?" He says, "Dad, I can't." He says, "That's a bunch of garbage. You can too." And the son said, "No, you don't understand. I can't." He's like, "That's right. I don't understand. Explain it to me." He said, "What if I suffocated you? What if I threw you down on the floor and suffocated your face with this pillow? So what would you do to get oxygen?" He said, "I would do anything." He's like, "Is this a choice?" He's like, "No, it's something that I need to survive." And he's like, "That's me and meth, Dad. I need it to survive. It's no longer a choice," right? And so this is kind of going further. Our brain is developing just, and I drew it like a rectangle, just so it's like this right here. It's like grass growing in to like a newly seeded lawn, right? So this is a time lapse of a seeded lawn that they threw down the seed, right? Your brains are like that when you are first born, right? The seeds start to grow, and as you get older and older and older, the brain develops more and more and more. And this process takes quite a while for a normal person to do this, right? And it's going to fill in, and pretty soon you have a full-on developed brain, right? Your brain right now as a 15, 16-year-old is not fully developed, right? You are still growing in your brain, okay? And so that's what the deal is with teens and drug addiction. It's different, right? A person that starts doing drugs when they're 26, 27, 28 is a lot different than a person doing drugs when they are 13 or 14, right? So you do the drugs and the pathway is laid down. This happens in an older person, right? That pathway will get laid down so it is there permanently, right? And so the drug is needed to fill those good feelings or that high, right? Some drugs have a bigger impact, like cocaine or meth or heroin. You know, maybe the first time someone does drugs, that pathway is laid down, like meth that has a 95% addiction rate, right? And those are heavier drugs. It's going to lay down that pathway, and that pathway is going to be there more permanently, right? Some people stop doing the drugs, and you can see the little bits of grass starting to grow in, but that pathway is still there, and it will still always be there. That's why they have to really guard against relapse. They can go to a drug rehab center that they try to fill in those pathways with behavioral therapy or some other kind of therapy and medication, right? The grass is different still, right? And the pathway is still there, and you can still see a difference, right? And the addict is always at risk. He can always relapse. Like they say, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And so they should try to avoid drugs at all costs, right? So an alcoholic probably shouldn't go to bars, or someone that's a drug addict probably shouldn't, go out with those same friends and things like that and be around it as much. We read article in my class, if we were still there, about that, about a drug-free high school where kids can go to that want to get away from drugs, and they're in the same boat with other people that want to get away from drugs, and so they go to this high school, everybody's in the same boat, and they're all trying to get away from it, right? Okay, but this isn't like your brain. Your brain is like this. Your brain is just barely starting to grow. It's learning, and it's acquiring new things. That's why you can learn a language a lot faster than your parents, because these pathways start being laid down a lot quicker than your parents, right? You can learn to drive a lot quicker even, right? I've taught driver's ed to adults and to teenagers, and teenagers learn a lot quicker, right? Because of this. Now imagine though, as someone's brain is developing like a teenager, they do drugs, right? And that pathway washes out all those seeds, or that pathway is laid down more permanently in a teenager's brain. Okay? Those seeds are destroyed. And so that person is more likely to be a lifelong addict because those pathways are laid down permanently, more permanently when the teenager was doing the drugs, right? And so it doesn't quite develop all the way, and these consequences turn into lifelong consequences. Some people call these people permafried, right? You all know people that maybe are older, like 55, 60, and they still act like they're 15 years old because of the lifelong effects and consequences of drug addiction, right? And so I just want you to think about that, and then you need to fill in the questions on the document and do those things as well, right? One thing that you could do that I think would be neat is if you want to see about, how these different about consequences with drugs. If you want to experience it, you don't have to do drugs to experience it, right? You don't have to get brain surgery to become a brain surgeon and things like that. Don't think that you have to do that. A lot of people have FOMO, fear of missing out. You're not missing out on anything by not doing drugs. The first step of doing drugs, I feel, is the most dangerous step, because the very first time you do drugs, you're probably not going to die. You're not going to get lung cancer. You're not going to lose your friends. Your A's aren't going to drop to F's the first time you do drugs. For a lot of people, there's no reason not to do the drug again, and so they continue on and on and on until they finally wake up and become an addict. And that does not happen overnight. It happens gradually, bit by bit. And when you unclick from this, you'll watch another video about how to cook a frog and how this frog feels comfortable with its surroundings and things like that, right? And so an experiment that I want you to do is, if you want to pause this video and do as many jumping jacks as you can, right? See how many jumping jacks you can do until you get tired. If you don't want to do jumping jacks and you're more advanced, do as many burpees as you can, maybe in a minute. Let's do that. Try to do as many jumping jacks, right, in a minute, or do burpees in a minute, okay? And then come back. So pause this video and then come back. And then after that, go and do that and count how many burpees or jumping jacks you can do in a minute. After that, go and get a straw, right? Just a straw, and cut it and put it in your mouth, and then hold it in your mouth and try to see how many jumping jacks and burpees you can do, right? You're not going to be able to do as many. And that is just an experiment, or I guess an activity that you can do to see how it would be if you had diminished lung capacity. If you smoked or did something that went into your lungs that made it so your lungs couldn't work how they used to, right? And then again, that's not a consequence that you can lie about. That's not a consequence that you can be like, I was just kidding, lungs. I don't want to have lung disease. I don't want to have emphysema. Then your lungs are like, oh, okay, I get the joke, so I'm going to regrow, right? Neither does your brain do that. You can't explain to your brain that you were just kidding. Hey, I was just kidding. I didn't mean for this to happen, right? The brain's not going to react to that. Sometimes we get into that. We get into the, I guess what you would say, we get into the habit of talking our way out of things. You can't talk your way out of drug addiction. You can't explain your way out of meth addiction or something like that. I hope you are all doing great. Looking forward to seeing some of your projects coming up in a couple of weeks. If you have any questions, please email me. If you want to send me a video on Canvas with you doing your jumping jacks and your experiment, that'd be great. That could be in place of this assignment. If you don't want to write all the answers, that'd be awesome. But I hope next time I see you, it's in class. Cross my fingers, right? Some of you are liking this Corona vacation. I don't know. Keeping cooped up in a storage, my storage room doing my class things is not what I really would love to be doing. But have a good day or evening or morning or whatever when you watch this. See you later.